I am so happy to be here with you today. Welcome to the 8th annual Justice on Trial Film Festival. This year has been an immensely difficult year for all of us. So much pain, so much loss, so much uncertainty, yet so much determination to keep going, to keep pushing, to keep fighting for a more just and safe world. I want to take a moment to thank all of you who have kept the fight alive for justice, a vibrant fight. You give us all so much hope for the future and for creating a better world, a more just world. I want to take a moment to thank our supporters of the film festival, Loyola Marymount University, Art for Justice, Bill Resnick, Michael Stubbs, Alliance for Safety and Justice, and Starting Over. This film festival was born out of a conversation with myself and Michelle Alexander. Michelle had just written a book, a groundbreaking book, a best-selling book called The New Jim Crow. We had a discussion about her book because I thought everybody in the world needed to read this book, and about the amazing documentary filmmakers that that needed and deserved a platform for their films to be seen. So we came up with this idea about the Justice on Trial Film Festival, and here we are now in our eighth year. I want to thank Michelle for being this beacon of light and change and courage. She's a great friend, a very, very dear friend to me, but she's also Michelle Alexander, the attorney, Michelle Alexander, the best-selling book author, Michelle Alexander, the change maker, Michelle Alexander, the professor, and Michelle Alexander, the mother. You know, many times people show up for a while, just for a season. But I know Michelle to have shown up consistently over the lifetime of our friendship, unwavering and unchanging. We sometimes have allies that stand with us for periods, but I call Michelle Alexander a partner for the fight for justice, to end mass incarceration, and just a great inspiration to me. I am so grateful for Michelle Alexander's friendship and to know her and to walk with her and to fight for justice with her. I want to bring forth to you Michelle Alexander, and I want to thank Aloe Black. I asked him if he would come to the film festival, and he showed up. He didn't waver in saying yes, and he's lent some of his music to us. So please just stay tuned throughout the film festival. Michelle Alexander, please, I guess we're not welcoming you to the stage. We're gonna welcome you to the screen because we keep going no matter what, and it's a screen for us today. Michelle Alexander, thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Susan, from the bottom of my heart. You are a dear friend, but you are also one of my sheroes. So thank you for your dedication to justice for as long as I've known you, and it's been quite a while now. We're getting old. You've been providing a safe space and support system for women returning home from prison at a new way of life. And you've been helping to build and to lead movements for the restoration of basic civil and human rights for formerly incarcerated people. And now you've been hosting this incredible film festival where we have the opportunity to deepen our understanding of the most pressing issues facing our community and our nation. This festival offers the opportunity for all of us to deepen our knowledge, widen our field of vision, and open our hearts and minds a bit wider while also celebrating the beauty, the courage, and artistry of filmmakers who have sacrificed so much to bring these stories and these truths to the screen. Many of us may be unaware of the amount of work and sacrifice that's often required to make a film that truly makes a difference. You know, if a film is done right, it can be one of the most powerful tools to help people see the world from a different point of view and understand complex issues. With film, you can see faces, you can look into the eyes of characters, sense their emotions, and see their surroundings, where they live, and who and what they live with. All of this offers a dimension that's unachievable, even in the best reports packed with data, graphs, and analysis. Sometimes great journalism or books manage to achieve this kind of impact, but there's a reason we say an image is worth 1,000 words. Filmmakers don't write policy briefs. They introduce new narratives, new voices, and new information so that systems, structures, and policies can be understood in a new light. You know, filmmakers help to create cultural moments by creating opportunities for people to see their world through a new lens. And as more and more people begin to shift their perspectives, space begins to open up for truly transformative change to happen. It's like a snowball effect. More stories are told, more voices get heard, and more people develop the will to seize the moment and flip our nation's script. Of course, I'll be the first to acknowledge that data, research, statistics, and policy analysis is important. I've spent much of my working life compiling research and analyzing statistics and data to expose and explain the utter injustice of our so-called justice systems. But film has unique power. Data can help us understand facts. Stories tell us why we should care. That's why Susan and I decided that it wasn't enough for us to support good books, good magazine articles, that we needed films that would help people to see the lives that are being shaped and destroyed by our injustice systems. There's a tremendous amount of research that shows that people are far more persuaded by stories, by narratives, than by information or data. Data doesn't reach that part of our brains which can process complex issues, make intuitive connections, engage our emotional intelligence, or inspire us to action. Stories speak to our emotional brain. They can create empathy, shift our perspectives, and inspire action. But telling powerful stories through film and stitching together compelling images through the editing process can be painstakingly difficult. And raising funds for these films often requires heroic effort, since films that tell the truth about our justice systems are rarely profitable. Fortunately, the brilliant filmmakers featured in this festival have not been deterred. We need their art, their creativity, and their wisdom now, perhaps more than ever. So we're gathering for this film festival now, at a pivotal moment in our nation's history. The largest protests in American history recently rocked our nations as thousands from coast to coast rose up, took to the streets, and raised their voices in protest of police violence, mass criminalization, and a punishment system that treats millions of people as though their lives don't matter. Just 10 years ago, when I was writing The New Jim Crow, the scale and scope of these protests seemed nearly unimaginable. But things are changing. A sleeping giant is waking up and saying things like Black Lives Matter, defund the police, reimagine justice. And we're beginning to win battles on the ground that were pipe dreams not long ago. At the same time, though, our democracy is in crisis. Growing numbers of activists and politicians have begun to worry aloud that our fledgling democracy could collapse, no matter who wins in November, especially if a peaceful transition of power is resisted. And the systems of mass incarceration and mass deportation and the routine police violence that has killed and maimed so many of our sisters and brothers continue unabated. Justice is on trial in this nation. And this festival is part of the effort to ensure that it remains on trial until we build a nation that honors the dignity and value of each and every one of us, no matter who we are, where we've come from, or what we may have done. Over the next couple of days, we'll be seeing films that are bringing to the screen the stories of everyday heroes, everyday tragedies, and remarkable victories against all odds. These are stories that often don't make cable news or headlines, but that help us to see more clearly what justice is and isn't, and what it will take for us to birth a nation and a system of justice in which every life truly matters. So to get us started, I have the pleasure of introducing Aloe Blacc, an internationally beloved and award-winning musician who's graciously agreed to join us tonight. Aloe Blacc's music has topped the charts in more than 100 countries, I'm told, and he's been nominated for Grammy. He's best known for his singles, I Need a Dollar, The Man, and for performing vocals on Wake Me Up. We couldn't be more thrilled that he agreed to show his support for a new way of life by coming to the Justice on Trial Film Festival. Some of us were surprised when he offered to speak, but we shouldn't have been. Aloe Blacc's entire life has been one of authentic commitment. As a child, he not only taught himself how to play the trumpet, but when his instrument broke, he fixed it himself. Commitment. I think he was about 8 at the time. And although he's been met with international acclaim and countless accolades since his first album, he's made clear that he wants his music to be about much more than winning awards or good reviews or the egoism that has come to define much of hip hop and our nation's competitive, individualistic culture as a whole. In fact, he was recently quoted as saying that landing a major record deal prompted a moment of reckoning for him, one that led him to re-examine his artistic intentions. He said, "When I signed a major label contract, I recognized the power of having a larger audience, and I promised myself that I'd use my voice for social change." And he has. Over the years, it's been Aloe Blacc's humanity that has shown through. He has an incredible voice and limitless talent, but the true measure of this brother is how he's used his platform. He's used his voice not only to speak out boldly against racism and police violence and in support of the movement for Black lives, but also to call together his friends across the music industry so they might be more united in their vision and more courageous in their efforts to support movements for justice. Please join me now in welcoming this brilliant and beautiful man, Aloe Blacc.
Hello. Thank you very much, Michelle, for the kind introduction. Thank you, Susan, for inviting me to share my voice and be part of this. But I'm here to support as an artivist, as a fellow artivist. I find this this term, artivism, to be quite descriptive of those who use their voice for positive social transformation. Artists who purposefully create art that can transform society, that can make people feel strongly about a certain situation and want to make a concerted effort to change that certain situation for the better. In particular, we're talking about social justice. We're talking about the carceral system. We're talking about police reform. When I started in the music business, my first genre was hip hop. And as I was using hip hop as my method of communication and distributing ideas and messages, I started learning about other genres of music because I was sampling from classic soul and rock and salsa and many different forms that suggested to me that I could use my voice in a different way. It was around the time that in the commercial music marketplace, gangster rap started to become extremely popular. And I took a detour from hip hop into a career as a singer-songwriter. And it's there that I found success in the music business, but I still feel strongly about the ability that I have and that I had as a hip hop artist to use my voice to create positive social transformation. Looking back at groups like Public Enemy and KRS-One, who would not shy away from political discourse within their music. So as I found the opportunity to release music on a major label, I realized that I had this bank of money that the record label would use to create music videos. And I thought, even if my songs are not ostensibly about a political issue or a social justice issue, I can take the music video and paint it with a, a symbolic brush that says, my heart and my focus is with the people and for the people. I had the opportunity to meet with an organization in South Los Angeles named Community Coalition. I had not previously known about Community Coalition, but as I was developing in my career, an opportunity came to me to do an advertisement for a liquor brand. Happened to be my dad's favorite liquor brand. And I thought, I mean, I don't drink, but I always saw my dad with this one and I know he loves it. It was a Tanqueray ad. And I said, I'll do it. I'll get the poster. I'll get some free drinks. I'll send it to my dad. He's going to love it. Well, my dad got the poster and he got his free liquor. But unfortunately, my poster also went up all across South LA. And I got a phone call from a friend who said, we here at Community Coalition are noticing your face all over South LA advertising liquor when we just got done trying to shut down 200 liquor stores. And it really hit me. It made me realize that everything that I do as an artist, every step that I take and every decision I make, however trivial I think it may be, has tremendous impact beyond me. And I went to meet with Community Coalition to understand more about their mission and what they are accomplishing. And that's when they explained to me about the school to prison pipeline. And I had a thought to myself that this is something that I can help to educate the rest of the world on. And so I did a music video using the record label's money to explain the school to prison pipeline dramatically. And this is what I feel is my calling as an artivist. And I applaud all other artivists who are using their art to speak to the social issues. And I'm now working with a coalition of musicians across the world, really, focusing on police reform here in the United States. And we are, a very active group pushing for changes in legislation across state legislatures and also across US Congress. The goal is to make meaningful change. We have our eyes set on ending qualified immunity so that families who have been subject to victimization, brutality, murder, theft, lies by police officers can receive remedy in civil litigation. And it only makes sense because in any other circumstance, a victim or a survivor of any brutality or crime would be able to receive that same right. So I'm going to continue my fight as an artist, and I'm going to continue to work with all of my peers within the music industry to keep this movement forward, the movement for Black lives, for transformation in the carceral system, so that we can be engaging a new method of a new way of fixing the issues and the ills that are in society. You know, our system has been for far too long a punitive system and not a restorative system. And that's what we're looking for. Restoration, reparations. Once again, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, Michelle. Thank you, Susan, for inviting me to speak. And I hope you enjoy my performance later.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aloe. I'm so encouraged by all of the movement, all of the surf, all of the awakening, all of the young people who are standing up. Thank you so much, Aloe. So we're going to get to our film line, and I want to introduce you to two people who have been instrumental in working early morning, late nights to bring this film festival to you live. When you registered for the film festival, you all had the opportunity to register to vote. I hope that if you're not registered to vote, you will take that opportunity and register to vote. And when it's time to vote, that you go vote. We have a really important election on the national front. We have a very important election, but locally, there are measures, there are propositions, there are different ways that you can vote to make change, have accountability, and call for justice through your vote. So I'm excited about voting, and I hope that you will too. Use your vote for your voice in this upcoming November 3rd election. So Danny Deza is the communications manager at A New Way of Life. He's worked tirelessly putting this film festival together. We love him. I'm so happy he's with us. And Asha Bandeli, she's worked right alongside of Danny. She's a longtime friend, a best-selling author, and a comrade, a partner, a longtime partner in the fight for justice. So Danny and Asha, please come forth and guide us through the film festival.
Thank you so very much, Susan and Michelle and Aloe. Encouraged was the word you used, and that's how I feel. And also in deep gratitude to know that we could be part of something that would uplift and educate so many people here today. I'm not going to take up too much time because I want to turn it over to Danny, who is the newest member of this team. And I mean, at midnight or at noon, working and pushing and doing so much to ensure that this would come to pass. We didn't even know that it would in the very beginning, but Susan, that's your vision. And I need to acknowledge that, you know, at a time when we're called to be socially distant, you demanded that we be spiritually close, and spiritually close so we could be spiritual warriors and move this movement forward. And so I want to thank you for that. And thank you for including me in it and all the work that you do. And with that, let me turn over to, it's not so much a partner in crime, I think a co-conspirator at this point. They're just incredible Danny Deza, who has jumped in with both feet, and I don't know what we'd do without him. Danny?
Thank you, Asha. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Aloe. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And I want to thank everybody watching also for being here. I want to welcome everyone to the very first night of the Justice on Trial Film Festival as we continue the conversation on mass incarceration and criminal justice reform through film and panel discussions. But I also want to invite everyone here to register also for every night of this film festival. We have many urgent topics that we will be talking about, that we'll be watching as well, that is affecting our nation. So please, after today's event, go to Justice on Trial, filmfestival.net, where you can register for tickets, but also you can register to vote. And also, if you're able to, whatever is within your means, please support the work of A New Way of Life by texting hashtag 2020 JustFest to 44321. So that's hashtag JustFest to 44321. But now let's turn to the main event, to the movie. So in a moment, I'm going to ask you to click a link that is located in the description of this video. And that link will allow you to watch the masterful and urgent film Push Out. It's based on the book of the same name by the scholar Dr. Monique Morris, who explored all the ways Black girls are targeted for punishment and incarceration from the time they enter school. At the end of the film, there will be an incredible video, bonus video by Aloe Black, and then an exciting panel discussion. And we will take as many questions from you for our panelists as possible. So keep an eye out for that chat box that you see there. I see some of you already typing away with some wonderful things. Thank you very much. So keep an eye on that during the discussion. When we come back from the film and ask questions away, we'll make sure our moderator gets them. But for now, let's click the link at the bottom of the video in the description. You'll see it says, please click here for film showcase after the opening. There's a link that'll take you to Justice on Trial, filmfestival.net. There, a film will start in a few moments, and we will see you back here at YouTube Live at 6:20 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Enjoy the film, get that popcorn, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, Aloe. Thank you. Love is the answer. And Tariana, thank you for speaking for the girl I once was. Thank you for your courage and your heart and all the women in the film. And let me bring Monique Morris, who I first met when I was a young editor at Essence Magazine. This has got to be 20 years ago, into this space. She has never equivocated on this work, never faltered, never failed. And to see this incredible output that Jacoba, you have helped bring to life, I am, thank you. I want to remind everybody that this is the work that A New Way of Life strives to end every single day, the trauma to prison pipeline. And as I remind you that you can type your questions into the chat, it's now my very, very great privilege to pass this mic over to a woman I met as a colleague and now as a friend and a sister, beloved to me, Dr. Deanna Cook, who has been a partner of the First Order at Loyola Marymount University, working with the one true Rory Walsh, who is running all of our tech tonight. And so I will say little else except that we are going to be joined tonight by the brave and the courageous Tariana, who is in the film. You will meet her, and you will meet Jacoba Atlas, who directed this incredible film. And we will also have our true soldier of love, Senator Holly Mitchell, the most honorable and fierce and ferocious, who are going to join us in a panel. So that is what I will say. And the mic is now yours, Deanna, as people know to type their questions or any concerns into the chat, and we will get to as many questions as we can tonight. Thank you again.
Thank you, Asha. I'm so excited to be here with you all. I am so honored to be representing Loyola Marymount University, a partner with A New Way of Life for the last 5 or 6 years, particularly related to the Justice on Trial Film Festival. With Loyola Marymount University, our College of Liberal Arts, along with our School of Film and Television, our College of Fine Arts, and also engaging with our wonderful Loyola Law School, we're really delighted to be a part of this film festival. Before I get started with the panelists that Asha so wonderfully just introduced, I'm going to give a couple of notes for those of you who are watching. One is make sure that you register for tomorrow's film, Belly of the Beast. It is really going to be an important film looking at the terrorism that is that has been engaged in with women who have been incarcerated related to forced sterilization. And so it's a really important story. We want you to make sure that you're registered for that. So please go back to your links and register for that. And when you do, if you have not yet registered to vote, please do so. You have that opportunity to register when you register for the film festival. Also, we are excited for you to share this with everyone you know. So put it on your social media, invite your friends and your families. We got 4 more nights of the film festival, so please join us. And then remember, each night, you're going to be registered separately, so make sure you register. And then finally, it's always my honor to be associated and affiliated with A New Way of Life reentry program. And if you are excited about the work that they are doing, I truly ask that you support their work. You can text hashtag 2020JustFest to 44321 to provide a donation to A New Way of Life reentry. And I really ask that you do that. They do such phenomenal and important work. So now I'm going to turn it to our panel. So I would just like to reiterate what Asha said. This was such a wonderful film and such an important film to address many of the issues that Black girls are experiencing. And it's really foundational to what's happening with the criminalization of Black people and Black women in particular. And one of the things that I always think about is the fact that the rate of incarceration for women has gone up 700% since the 1980s. And while women still are a lower percentage of the carceral population, they've increased at twice the rate of men in incarceration. And so women's issues are really important when we're thinking about these topics. And so I want to turn to our director, Jacoba Atlas, and ask her a couple of questions about how she got started with this film. This is based on a book by Monique Morris. And why is it that you were inspired, or how did you become inspired to actually turn this book into a film? What do you want people to get out of this?
Of course. Well, one of the things, I'll start there, and thank you for inviting me and thank you for showing this film. One of the things that we wanted to do with this film, and it's happening, is that it should generate questions and generate discussions and hopefully generate change, which is what we really want to see happen. I started being interested in this. I had done 2 previous films for PBS about education. One was called Education Under Arrest, which was about the incarceration of teenagers in actual prisons. And another one was called Too Important to Fail, and that was about Black boys and the challenges that they faced. And I kept wondering, well, where's the story about what Black girls are facing? And with my producing partner, Denise Pines, we started talking about this and trying to find, well, what was the best way to tell the story? And then I heard Monique Morris, who you have heard mentioned already, speak at the California Endowment. And she was so dynamic and so passionate. And I read her book, and we reached out to her and said, would you be interested in collaborating with us to do this documentary? And thankfully, she said yes. And my role, I really felt strongly, was she had never done a documentary before, but she, as was said, she's been working in this field for 20 years. She knew this backwards. And my job was to put on the screen all of the good work and all of her passion and all of her insights into this issue so that it could reach the broadest possible audience.
Thank you. That's really interesting. One of the things that I found so interesting about this was that you really went around the country and found these stories and how similar the stories and the experiences were of these young women. How did you find the organizations that they were working with? And how did you find these really insightful women to participate, and girls to participate in this program?
Oh, thank you for asking that. I mean, a lot of that was based on the work that Monique has done over the years. She knew all of these organizations, and then we reached out to them and asked I did a lot of pre-interviews, who would be willing to tell their stories, who would feel comfortable telling their stories, who would have the support when they told these stories, because these are very public stories. I know Tariana will get into that and what she experienced, and that the bravery of Tariana and the other girls who told their stories was just phenomenal. And we were able to find these girls because of the organizations that have been supporting them. And we definitely wanted to go to places around the country that you wouldn't automatically think there was a crisis. So Columbus, Ohio doesn't come immediately to mind, but that was one of the most powerful places that we went because of that incredible school and the work they've been doing with middle school girls who are really in that transitional period where their lives can go to a very positive way or maybe not so positive. So that was really good, going to Columbus and then going to Florida, another place where you might not think this was a crisis. The fact is, it's a crisis all over the country.
So important to know that. So important to think about the varying places, that this isn't just a localized issue, a challenge in one community and not another, but it actually is national. And I would dare say, knowing something about some other places, that it's global. And so I really think this is such an important story to tell. And you mentioned Ms. Tariana Evans. And so I want to ask her a question now. And I believe we still have Ms. Gianna with Ms. Tariana. And so I wanted to get a sense of your experience doing this work. You have been a victim of the push out. You've been someone who has experienced these traumas that impact Black girls, and then you went to actually to support other girls after you got the support that you needed. Tell us about what you think are some of the biggest issues with Black girls, and how it is that they can um, be resilient to some of the challenges that they're facing. What have you found to be the things that help Black girls become most resilient to these challenges?
Well, what I've definitely found for Black girls to become more resilient is the fact that being able to know that there's other people out there that's been through the same thing that you've been through makes it way more easier to acknowledge what you've been through, and just it just makes it easier just to be around somebody that knows what you've been through, especially a group of women. It makes you feel like, okay, I'm not the only one. So it just helps. It just makes it way easier to get through things and to know that there's a better day, especially seeing women that are, that might not be ready to change. And then you're going from women that are ready to change, or people who've already done their growing, and just seeing that there's an opportunity out there for you too. It's just really helpful. And also knowing, like, if you need help, that you can reach out for it, that you shouldn't be ashamed or nervous to reach out, to always be accepting of that.
Thank you. And then what was it like to tell your story on screen? How did you feel about that? And what do you hope that people get out of that experience?
I was nervous. I know it was like for the better good, but I was nervous. I was scared of what people might think of me, or like what might happen after. A lot of people, I don't really like to share my personal life with a lot of people. So for me, it was like scary, like, dang, everybody's gonna know what I've been through and stuff that I don't talk about. And it might actually show people why I act the way that I act also. So it was just like a bittersweet kind of thing. Like, I was nervous about what people was gonna think of me, but I was proud of myself, and I'm glad I had got it out there to the world. But yeah, like I said, it was just a bittersweet feeling.
So I will just say that from my perspective, I'm so happy you were willing and able to do that, because I think that what you are going to do is support so many young girls in talking about their own stories and sharing their own stories, and realizing, just like what you said, that they're not alone.
And that's like exactly what I want to do. I tell a lot of people in my life, like, I just want to be able to take my story and share it with other women and let them know, and young girls, and let them know that it's possible to do something better or become something if you really want to. And not to let anybody shy you away from doing that also, to believe in yourself always. If you know this is something that you want to do and you're capable of doing it, then go ahead and do it.
Awesome. Ms. Atlas, I'm going to turn back to you. I wanted to find out, I know there's a lot of facts that are shared in the film. What are some of the things that surprised you, and maybe even surprised your audiences, that you might highlight as, that were part of the film?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. I mean, the statistics are really pretty shocking. And I think the people who work in this field know all of those statistics. They know them backwards. But getting what I said earlier about getting it to a wider audience, I knew it was serious, but I didn't quite know how incredibly pervasive it was, what the consequences are, and how people were not really looking at the underlying causes for girls to be, just to use that word, acting out in school. I mean, one of the things that I think was really important about what Monique said about, and what some of the other experts said, is that you really have to look at the why things are happening, not just what is happening. So it's not just the behavior that you want to look at with girls, but the reasons behind that behavior. And I hope we were able to do that in this documentary, just emphasize how important it is to look at the underlying issues that girls are facing. There's so many challenges, and now with COVID-19, going back to school and everything, the traumas that they faced, and it's just so important to look at this. And honestly, I think that for a lot of people in white America, and I'm making a generalization, but I will make it, I don't think they knew about these statistics. And I don't think they knew about this story. Because when I started working on this and I would tell my friends some of the statistics, they would go, "Are you serious? Are you serious?" And part of it, I think, was partly because under President Obama, they had my brother's keeper, but it wasn't my brother and my sister's keeper. So a lot of emphasis was put on, rightly, on African-American boys, but the girls were sort of left out of the equation. And so I think understanding what was going on was kind of a shock to a lot of people.
Mhm. I'm just going to follow up on that, because that was going to be one of my other questions, is as we think about, for instance, the Black Lives Matter movement now, and I know that there's been a lot of emphasis on like Breonna Taylor and other women, and this is for anyone of you all, have we started to put enough emphasis on Black girls in our overall movements that are happening today? So I think Ms. Atlas, you might have to.
When we started this film, there was not that emphasis. I will say that. I mean, there were pockets of that emphasis, but one of the things that was really important, and has been so important to Monique, is to realize that girls matter. I think Kimberly Crenshaw says, when did it become acceptable that it was only okay for half the people to have social justice rights? Why not for the girls too? So I think that all of these things are steps forward, and certainly with Black Lives Matter and Breonna Taylor and the Sandra Bland, and it's getting better. It's certainly not where it needs to be, but I'm sure Senator Mitchell can speak to that maybe more eloquently than I can.
Thank you, because I was just getting ready to turn it to Senator Mitchell.
So to respond to that question, I was sitting here thinking back. My mother, who worked in probation and corrections her entire professional career, retired as chief probation officer in Alameda County, and 20 years ago started a program for girls, the RISE program, because she recognized over her entire 40-year career as a former prison warden at a women's prison, that women and girls were always an afterthought. In prevention programs and intervention programs, and even in incarceration. And so it's always been a struggle to make sure that we've got appropriate programming and appropriate funding to meet the needs of girls. And absent that, we've continued to see their numbers rise significantly. And so I hope, as a result of Push Out, both the book and the film, that more and more people are sensitized to their unique needs, and we could affect some sustainable structural change.
No, thank you for that. No, I think that's very important. And I wanted to kind of turn to you and ask about what some of those changes maybe at the state level are. I know you've been involved in a number of criminal justice reform activities, and some that are very specific to some legislation that's very specific to Black girls and women. And I think specifically of the Crown Act, but I know that there's others. So I wanted to see if you could tell us a bit about what's happening at the state level to change some of the policies that are pushing girls out.
Well, first of all, let me thank you for including me today. Let me thank Ms. Atlas, and I know Denise Pines, for your stellar work. I carried the book around for a couple of years and had the privilege of being on a panel with Dr. Morris just last week. And if I may start where your film ends, by saying to Gianna that you are sacred to me and we love you. And for Gianna to understand that all of the work we are doing today is to create a different space and opportunity for her. So I'm glad that she is here and able to participate in this conversation, because it really is all about Gianna, and you are sacred and we love you. The film was very powerful, as was the book. And I was reminded of a number of pieces of legislation that we've done over time that we've really attempted to address many of the issues that the movie raised. I was very proud to carry a bill a number of years ago that decriminalized prostitution for minors who were victims of sex trafficking. I'm gonna say that one more time because those words are very important. We decriminalized prostitution for minor victims of sex trafficking. And I say it twice because I was first amused and then infuriated by some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle who suggested to the national press that I had legalized prostitution and refused to understand the difference between underage girls who by current statute can't consent to sex. And so why we were pulling them into a criminal justice system when they were indeed victims. And I often equated as I presented the bill in committee and on the floor that it would never occur to us to charge rape victims with prostitution. And so that was an important first step for me, an early step for the California legislature in the last decade or so, where we have tried to unwind the criminalization of Black girls. The Crown Act, I'm very proud of, was a bill that I carried, first of its kind in the country. When we looked at the statistics and the sheer number of girls who were being pushed out of school because of how they choose to wear their hair, locks like mine, twists, box braids, and they were being pushed out based on dress codes that said that their hair was a distraction to others. How offensive. And so while I am clear that the passage of the Crown Act won't drastically impact the statistics that we saw at the top of the film, for me, it was one less box that could be checked. When an administration, a superintendent, a principal, whoever sits down to draft dress codes, that they had to acknowledge that they had historically written codes that were targeting Black girls and pushing them out of educational systems. You know, there have been a number of bills that we've passed as a legislative body in recent years, most recently a couple of bills that will certainly enhance the experience and support for Black girls. I'm proud to be a member of the California Legislative Black Caucus, and we just passed several bills that will make ethnic studies a graduation requirement for our CSU system and a requirement in high school. You know, the point is to sensitize people who don't look like me, who have not had my same walk, to understand, as Ms. Atlas said earlier, you know, the history of my attitude, my confidence, if you will, that some people feel and interpret as off-putting or aggressive. And so I think full funding this year through K-14 education is very important. We've had a number of criminal justice reform bills. I'm proud to have carried a package of bills that really attempted to decriminalize childhood. And so as a result of this package, you know, 15 and 16-year-olds can no longer be tried as adults. We are no longer allowing children under 15 to waive their Miranda rights. And we are no longer incarcerating children under 13 in jail, and juvenile hall is jail in this state. Those were landmark pieces of legislation that really were a game changer in terms of our views and our attitudes about the juvenile justice system and the children in it. This year, I'll close in this budget. Governor Gavin Newsom said 2 years ago that he wanted to move the Department of Juvenile Justice out of Department of Corrections into Health and Human Services Agency. That was important because it really is about the infrastructure we build to provide supports to young people, like Ms. Evans says, as opposed to signing them off to a juvenile jail system with a full expectation that that's where they'll spend the rest of their lives. This year, through the budget process, we were able to transition. There are 800 young people in Department of Juvenile Justice right now, and over the course of the next year, they will be transitioned to county control, where we're hoping that the nonprofit sector will be able to stand up and provide appropriate supports to them. And so we've done a lot of work. There was a couple of bills that got a lot of attention that didn't get through the process, but it's important to acknowledge what we have done, particularly for young people and Black girls in the last several years in the California legislature. It's work that makes me very proud.
Wow, and we are proud of you. I think just listening to all of these pieces of legislation and changing really the narrative about what is a criminal act, who is an adult, who gets to consent, where we should be putting people who, whether they make mistakes or they have had mistakes made on them, we have criminalized them in one place or another. And so I think I agree with you. I was applauding. I was applauding and cheering you on, but I was like, oh no, that probably is not the right space to do it. But no, I think this is so important. We have criminalized our communities, and we have made children criminals. We have criminalized our people of color. We've criminalized poverty. And so to get out of this cauldron of injustice, I'm really excited that you're in the midst of this work, and we're getting some things done. So thank you so much for that work. We have a couple of questions from the audience that I'll ask right now. One, it may be to you, Senator Mitchell, or maybe to Ms. Atlas. It's what programs like the ones in the film do we know about that are being implemented in Los Angeles? So what programs specifically for Black girls do you know about?
Regretfully, I don't know of any I'm sure there are some that are being done here, but I don't know. I think looking what the work that Kimberly Crenshaw has been doing would be really helpful. And I'm sure there are other organizations that are doing things. One thing that I do want to say, because this film has been shown to a lot of educators, and I just want to point out a statistic that's in the film, but I think it's important to say it, that most of the teachers in public schools are not African American. Most of them are white women who have not had the experiences that African American girls have. And there's a huge learning curve for them. And one of the things that I think was really powerful about Columbus, where you see all of the teachers that we saw in that segment are white, and the principal and the vice principal are African American women, but they work really closely trying to make a space for the white teachers who care about their students to understand some of the ramifications of what their girls are going through, so they can be much better educators. And we have shown this film to a lot of educators, and we're continuing to do that. Monique's work is continuing that. And I just want to put that out there, that to acknowledge that our school system, our public school system, is still primarily white teachers, and they're primarily women teachers who do not have the same experiences of the girls that they're teaching. And it's really important to make that connection and give the teachers the tools to deal with these wonderful girls in a much more positive way and understand them in a much more positive way. I know that doesn't really answer the question, but.
Well, and I couldn't agree more. And two things come to mind. I recognize the story of the 7-year-old and her experience, because that was a California experience. That was right in Sacramento. I recognize the neighborhood and the school. And so as Dr. Cook, I think, said earlier, it's everywhere. And we shouldn't think the liberal, good blue state of California doesn't have our own challenges by any means. I would challenge all of the viewers who ask the question about what's happening in LA to ask your local elected officials what's happening in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. Ask the probation department in LA County, what are you doing for Black girls? Let's ask our nonprofit organizations, what are you doing for Black girls? Because we've got to help build this movement to make sure that programming is created. In my own mother's experience, many a good thing starts with one person, and she was in a position of power and authority to write a grant and make it happen based on her lifetime of experience as in corrections and probation, and knowing that girls in particular were being left out. And in her experience there in Alameda County, Black and brown girls, and finding probation officers who looked like them, and really talking about the focus of their effort was prevention. And so let's ask the question. I know that Brotherhood Crusade has an amazing program. I'm thinking about their program for young men. Mm-hmm. Community Coalition is doing a lot of youth organizing, but we should all step up and ask the question, what about Black girls? Because the statistics in the book and at the beginning of the film remove any question as to whether or not it should be a top priority. Mm-hmm. So we all have to ask the question and push that boulder up that steep hill.
Absolutely. And I think that's really important to think about. I know there are a couple of programs. There's a diversion program for young girls who are trafficked in LA County through the court system. And I would say look to our churches. I think our churches have some programs that are specific to girls. But I totally agree. This is something that we need to ask and push for, and really sit with the fact that our girls are not necessarily the folks who are focused on.
And I would agree with you, as you said, that there are a number of civic organizations who have really, and sororities who have come to the table around human sex trafficking. They have stepped up for kids in foster care and those who are victims. But I think what the film shows is it's all Black girls, not just those who are currently systems touched.
Yep.
But the 7-year-old who was from a very clearly middle-class Black family with a mother and father in the household and older siblings, who still felt unseen and unheard. And so while we do have some programs for kids who are systems touched, and those are very important, we have to see all Black girls everywhere, in our schools, at church, in their homes, everywhere.
And I could not agree with you more. And it makes me think about another angle to this, which is a question that I was asked, which is this really more prevalent? Is the challenges with Black girls more prevalent in communities that are not predominantly Black, or in communities that are predominantly Black? And my answer is probably it's both, right? We have over policing in predominantly poor Black communities, but we also have really clear divisions between what happens with Black kids who are often in white environments, particularly in schooling settings. Same kind of issues with being accused of whatever issue that they're coming up with. I'm gonna turn to Ms. Evans one more time, and I think this may be your last question. There is a question for you that says, what's your take on what we should be doing now to best help Black girls and women succeed in school and beyond? So you've talked a little bit about this, but if you want to come back around and maybe give us a final word, what do you think, what should we be doing? So we talked about systems, we talked about girls, we talked about the experiences that they've had. What should we be doing?
First, I would say watching this film is one important thing that people can do. Second, I would say is unlearning and relearning how to work with young Black females, because it is like a thing that goes around, like we're angry or upset all the time, and that's not really the case. Like, it's more to it, and I wish people would take the time to understand that more. So I guess stepping back and trying to be more understanding for the people around you. That's what I would say.
All right, thank you so much. So I think we're gonna leave it here for tonight, but I really appreciate you, and I really appreciate you bringing Gianna with you. Oh my gosh, she's awake, she's beautiful. Ms. Atlas, I am so happy that you made this film. I'm so happy that you told this story in film format. And Senator Mitchell, thank you for everything that you've been doing to support Black girls and our communities and our state overall. I really appreciate it. It's been such an honor to be here with all of you. So thank you so much for your time. So with this, I want to turn us over. We're going to go and have our encore production or encore viewing of the Push Out movie. So if you came only for the panel so far, you got a preview of this amazing film that was created and all the wonderful stories that are being told in that. Well, the wonderful stories being told about things that are not so wonderful, let me be clear. But certainly really important topics that are critical for us to be thinking about and working on. So I want to thank Arts for Justice, the Alliance for Safety and Justice. And I have to thank my colleague here at LMU, who is our technology person, who has been making sure that we are good to go on YouTube and watching the films and connecting. So For now, I'm going to say good night and send you off to watch the encore presentation of Push Out, followed by the encore presentation of Aloe Blacc. If you need to go to the film, the link is just below in the YouTube description, just below the YouTube screening. So thank you all for being here. I appreciate you and look forward to seeing you tomorrow.